Now let's move back to those markets in Nigeria. Of course, we did run through quite a few company earnings, and that is what has driven the market recovery today. We saw the NSE All-Share Index up 1.12% to 37,562 points. The gainers on the day included Guinness Nigeria, 7up, Dangote Cement, which reported its half-year numbers. Nestle Nigeria reported half-year numbers last week. It was also up today. And Champions Breweries also among the gainers. Among the losers, we saw Forte Oil and Stanbic. Now, recently, we have seen, like I mentioned, the market fall back quite a bit, and after the recent declines, we've seen a flurry of corporate results lifting a few stocks, but many investors continue to remain on the sideline. As today, we did see volumes lower after the MPC's shock decision to tighten monetary policy at its last meeting. I'll be now discussing the market's performance with David Andori, General Manager at Albeit Trust and Investment. He's standing by at the NSE. David, thank you so much for joining us. All right, David, so I guess it's an exciting day. After the fall we saw last week, we see the NSE All-Share Index up today, but I think the big takeaway for me is the volumes. The volumes remain quite low. Indeed, today it was pretty low, 1.7 billion naira. Your take on the level of interest after that MPC shock decision last week?
Yes, that decision is shocking because it had a very, very negative impact on equities last week. The market reacted by declining very sharply, especially the banking stocks were hardest hit last week as a result of the monetary tightening policy. Right. But it's really wonderful that this week we are seeing a remarkable turnaround. Today being the first trading day of the week, and the market started on a very, very positive note. Just like you observed at the beginning of your report, that the second quarter earnings reports have been very, very impressive. So it's not unlikely, therefore, that the upward trend we are seeing in the market today was actually facilitated by the positive impact of the impressive second quarter earnings. Right. That was reported by most of those companies. But secondly, Wale, if you don't mind,
sure, go ahead.
I also want to state that the later last week, the macro economy was actually reflated significantly with the CBN paying up on treasury bills that had matured, and also FAC allocation hit the market last week. And so that increased the macroeconomic liquidity. So it's not unlikely, therefore, that it may have started trickling into the equities market. So we have a wonderful week ahead of us.
Well, we certainly hope so after the fall we saw last week. But a lot of people a bit concerned now as to where the market goes from here. I think there's a concern that this recovery that we're seeing today may not be sustained. And of course, if you look at the volumes, I think that tells you the story. Not too many people buying into this market right now. Do you anticipate that volumes will pick up this week?
Yes, I anticipate that volumes should pick up, notwithstanding the fact that Dangote Cement contributed immensely to today's appreciation. Although we should also acknowledge the contributions of 7up and Guinness that are actually being fired up as a result of expectations relating to their full year financial results. Those companies have consistently delivered, and I'm sure we should see volumes picking up for those two companies and generally for the market. Like I said earlier on, we have a macro economy that has been reflated essentially by redemption of treasury bills that had matured at the later part of last week, and also FAC allocation that had hit the market. And so bearing in mind that we are also at the end of the month, so we could also have that end of month effect wherein portfolio managers would want to end the month with a very healthy position in their box loads.
All right, if we look at some of the numbers that have come out, I think one that is quite striking is UBA, and I think a lot of people are excited about UBA's full year numbers for 2012 and of course the first quarter. But a lot of people pointing to a decline in that pickup, the momentum of that performance. And today, of course, we're seeing earnings per share only up 7.6% for the first half of the year. Your thoughts about UBA's performance and how the market has reacted today? We see the share price has not moved very much today.
Yes, indeed, because the difference between the performance this year compared to the performance last year is not very, very material. If you compare it to what we are seeing with EcoBank Transnational that has more than double its performance for last year. So that may be the reason why investors have not reacted in an exorbitant manner to the half-year earnings of UBA. But that notwithstanding, we also need to give credit to the bank because it's actually stretched itself across the length and breadth of the African continent. And so it's a bank that is still digging in, investing all over the places, so that they are able to come up with a report that has shown an increase in earning, no matter how small. I think is actually wonderful.
Right.
You know, so
David,
with time,
let me get your take on are you bullish or bearish about the banking sector after the MPC's decision? UBA, of course, the impact of the decision will be seen more in Q3 and Q4. So your thoughts about the future for banks?
Yes, you have captured it aptly that there should be a period of delay in the reaction to the policy, probably coming up later in Q3 and perhaps Q4. But the banks, as it is now, have become very resilient. And I believe that they are probably going to have a way of working around that policy and developing other areas of income that will compensate for what they will probably lose in complying with the new policy. We have a banking sector that is quite resilient now, that is also diversified beyond the shores of this country, you know. So, but we have already seen the impact that in the first few days, the interbank rate that analysts had predicted will go up actually declined, right. You know. So it's difficult to say that that policy will materially...
So you're still bullish on the banks, is that what I hear you saying?
Yes, I believe the banks will be okay.
Well, we'll see how the second half plays out. And of course, the banks really have to adjust to that big decision. It's going to have definitely an impact on earnings. I think there's a consensus view on that. Thank you so much, David, for joining us. David Andori, General Manager at Lambek Trust and Investment.